I feel like it's a very tough time to be a man these days. You're laughing, but I'm actually serious. It's really hard to be a man these days, especially post Aurat March. So today, today for all those who identify as men, I want to share a story of a man with you who was once a huge part of my life. Let's start somewhere around 1986. Born in a nursing home to he was a second son to parents living on the fringes of the poverty line. Let's call him M. He had a humble beginning, and he was a younger brother to an assumed to be more handsome, fairer-skinned boy. M was never allowed to forget how dark his skin was, and thus inferior. But he did whatever he could to not care. And the thing is, when you're made to feel inferior about something you can't control, like the color of your skin, you learn to overcompensate. So there was no one more loving than M, this outcast of a boy. He was on top of his class every single year of his academic performance. He was an unbeatable topper with extracurricular activities they ran out of awards for. Regardless of how he was treated at home or at school, he loved his family unequivocally. He worshipped his mother for being the sole breadwinner in his household and facing all kinds of abuse at the hands of his father and grandparents. He had one khala, whom he loved with all his heart, and her 3 daughters, whom he cared for like they were his own. So much so that one day, his khalu, in a jealous frenzy, physically and sexually abused him for making him feel like less of a man and father. But M, he stopped at nothing. He continued to love unconditionally, and he never breathed a word about what had happened. And he also never let his grades falter. After this traumatic experience, he turned to poetry and music, which comforted him in his loneliness. Faiz, Ghalib, Momin, Tina Sani, Iqbal Bano, Nusrat Fateh Ali, you name it. When it was time for his elder brother to pursue higher education, his parents dug up whatever morsel of savings they could find to send the elder brother to a reputable engineering school. Even though his academic record didn't hold a candle to M's, but c'est la vie, I guess. When it was M's turn to pursue higher education, his parents were bankrupt. His elder brother was struggling financially and academically in his last year of engineering school. So he did what a good son would have done in that situation. He joined the armed forces and swore an oath to protect every citizen of Pakistan, joined an engineering school, and earned a meager salary as a cadet, and sent all the money home. Through odd jobs and acing all of his exams, he gathered enough money to not only help his brother graduate, but also land a job and get married. So he helped his elder brother stand on his own 2 feet. Soon after, M himself became an independent, self-made man. As you can imagine, being a graduate with honors, he had no problem climbing his way up the social and professional hierarchy. And throughout this entire time, M remained a down-to-earth, loyal, achingly generous, and affectionate man. To friends, family, beggars, strangers, he let no one leave empty-handed. So this charming and cultured man, he came into my life when I was a shy 13-year-old child, struggling to communicate and understand the cruel world around me, courtesy of my unnoticed and then undiagnosed autism. I had a stutter and only found comfort in listening to and playing music, and after dark, in my writing. I barely had a voice, which was so meek to begin with. The world just made me believe, more so, of how utterly insignificant I was. One day, M read my writing and was completely blown away. He encouraged me to work on my craft in a way no one was ever able to, or at least no one else had the time to. He sent me long emails every day telling me this new idea of how special, extraordinary, and unique I am. And for the briefest moment, in the absolute pit of my clinical depression, I almost believed that that meek, deemed insignificant voice might actually be important. I began smiling, talking to people, eating. But I was put back in my place rather quickly. As it turns out, as much as M had an eye for art, he also had an eye for vulnerability. What I failed to understand back then was that he didn't see something beautiful inside me, and I was really stupid for believing that I might actually be special. He saw a pathetic, neglected child of a thoroughly broken home, and after gaining my parents' utmost trust and respect, behind closed doors, M sexually abused me on and off for 2.5 years, the better part of my adolescence. The voice I had found and made the horrible mistake of believing, M destroyed, further cementing just how meaningless my existence was. He was still an amazing son, brother, and friend when he violated a helpless child 10 years younger than him and blamed her for being too mature for her age, so of course he couldn't help himself. He was still all those amazing men when he systematically slandered my name in front of my family, alienated me from the handful of friends I managed to keep, but inevitably lost, and gaslighted me into literal insanity. He was still a special man to everyone when he said he loved me, and I thought he meant it. He was still an amazing son when, after once sexually violating me, he said, "No one could love broken goods like me." He was still an amazing man when I believed him when he said he loved me. And he did. Isn't that what love is supposed to feel like? People often ask trauma survivors, if he was so horrible to you, why didn't you just leave him? Completely erasing the complexity of our trauma. We don't stay because we take some sort of sick pleasure in being treated like pieces of meat. We stay because the good is so good, it makes you feel ungrateful for complaining or even thinking about complaining about being raped, being hit, being emotionally abused. We stay because these men, these predators, work so hard to find us like prey and cement this belief in us that this is all we deserve, that this is all we are worth. Soon after being violated for the first time, I began self-harming. When the cuts seemed to catch everyone's attention, and I was christened attention-seeking, I began cutting in more discreet places. I began burning myself with lit cigarette butts. My body failed me. It wasn't my home anymore. I never let my grades falter, but I deprived myself of any kind of catharsis. I forced myself to stop singing, playing my music, and eventually my writing. I stopped crying altogether because I had it so much better than other trauma survivors. I developed an eating disorder, which I'm still learning to fight to this day. No one loved me already, and I became so quiet inside, mimicking the deafening silence everyone else had towards me and what was continuing to happen to me. I convinced myself eventually, with all the shame that I carried, I was better off dead. The abuse had been stopped for about 7 years at this point. My night terrors were getting out of hand, and self-harm just was not a potent enough disconnect from my trauma. So on the morning of December 26th, 2017, my mother found me sprawled on my bedroom floor, seizing and unconscious, surrounded by empty leaves of medicine. I don't remember much from that morning, but I remember the weight of disappointment I felt when I figured out that I was still alive. After that, I began finding more violent ways to end my life. I came so close, but some force in this universe was too stubborn to let me go. I thought of dropping out of fourth year of MBBS, but my increasingly worried parents did whatever they could to keep me in school and get me the help I needed at the time. But the thing is, it didn't matter how much my family, friends, and fiancé loved me, because I believed I was completely unworthy of love. I thought, look at these beautiful people wasting their time and love on me. I can't wait to disappear so someone worthy of all of that can take my place, and it can be worth their while. Mind you, it has been 7 long years since I was last abused, but I am still picking up the pieces today. I began going to therapy, but my overdoses didn't stop. I couldn't leave my bed for days. I refused to eat, to smile, to leave any kind of mark in this world I so firmly believed was better off without me. When I finally hit rock bottom, I very tentatively realized that all of the shame that I carried inside me that made it impossible for me to function was not mine to carry. That shame belonged to M. The anger I directed towards my body was mine because I knew I was not at fault. And anyone who said otherwise was just as bad. I was not at fault. No child ever is. We always talk about statistics about how many women are raped in a year. But no one ever talks about the number of men who raped people this year. This perspective that I am the victim is so broken and so flawed. I am not a victim. M is a rapist. Call the monster what it is. Call the monster what it is. M is a man who used his cisgender privilege to abuse me and control every aspect of my life, and people let him. As a society, we have made it abundantly clear to trauma survivors that to us, the most important thing in this entire universe is a man's reputation, his family name. The reputation of a man who should have known better and did, and all throughout his life was never held accountable for the people he took advantage of and violated in the worst possible way. From the day they are born, we teach boys it's okay no matter what you do. Boys will be boys. We did this. To the men in this room, I would like to say, please don't cringe when I call M a man. He is a man, just like you. A son, a husband, a brother, a friend. And of course, you're not all abusers. Congratulations on your basic human decency. But all of the women you know have at some point in their lives been harassed, violated, made to feel uncomfortable, or been persecuted for the unforgivable act of being a woman. I am asking you, imploring you to choose better and believe them. To call out your friends when they objectify women and act problematically. We don't owe you proof. You are not entitled to our journey towards healing. We don't owe you the details of our struggles so you can empathize with us and humanize us. We are already human. So please think about how many more women, children, and marginalized folk need to be made examples of as stepping stones to your enlightenment until you realize that fine, not all men, but enough men Enough men to scare any woman trying to get home after Maghrib. Enough men to shame your own 6-year-old daughter for wearing a frock in the presence of a male family member. Enough men to shame yourself into hoping what you're wearing isn't provocative enough. As much as I wish it could be done, trauma cannot be quantified. It is a gross injustice no matter who it happens to, regardless of religion, caste, creed, your education status. And I am well aware of how good I have it. I have not lived a day under the poverty line. I was able to afford therapy and medication. And I am using my voice on a platform like this. I have the liberty to dress the way I feel comfortable. I have the spotlight, and you're obligated to look at me, at the very least, if not listen. And the saddest part about all of this is that M's story would have seen the light of day anyway. That's the upside of being a man. You are born enough and valid. Innocent until proven guilty is only applicable to you by a constitution that was made by you and for you and no one else. And we have allowed this to happen. We have allowed women to be treated as a subspecies. As a culture, as a society, as a world order, we have allowed this to happen, and this is what it is. But it doesn't have to be. This man, M, he is my trauma. But that's all he is. A story. A blip in the vastness that exists between the person I used to be and the person I keep making myself proud by becoming every day. I am not my trauma. We are not our trauma. I am not the war every abuser tried to turn my body into. I am not the clenched curl of my fingers in halted and complex PTSD, but a heart the size of a loosening fist. I am whole and beautiful and fathomless. Because you see, he tried to break me. He tried his best, and guess what? I'm still here. I'm still here, faultless, wronged, and not someone who pours their pain onto other people. Do you know the 3 most beautiful words of the English language? It's not I love you. It's I believe you. I believe Asma. I believe Zainab. I believe you. But most importantly, I believe me. And that is the story I hope sees the light of day. That is the story I hope little children never grow up to know as they grow up in a world of equal opportunity, devoid of the shackles of sexism. I want to share myself with anyone who has ever felt unsafe in their bodies, their own good families, their own good homes. I will always love and fight for you like I have never been hurt, with my heart wide open. And I will be right here with you. I will always attempt to be your safest hiding place.